it's Aurora and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. Hello. So it is the first video of the month and I'm going to be doing something a bit new and different. I am going to be doing a deep dive into a trope. I'm going to be talking about what it is and why I think it's popular, what makes it work and where it can go very, very wrong. And all of this kind of from a bit of a reader's perspective as well as a writing perspective. And as you can tell from the title of this video, we are starting with enemies to lovers because it is my favourite. If you have tropes you want to see me cover, then do leave a comment down below and I will add them to the list. So starting out, what is enemies to lovers? Clue is kind of in the name. This one is just a does what it says on the tin trope. Two people start out hating each other. They are enemies. They are constantly fighting. By the end, they are a happy couple. Why do I think this trope is popular? And I can only speak from like what I perceive. First up, for me, it is pure fantasy. I have never known two people go from enemies to lovers. Two people who cannot stand to be around each other falling in love. No. I've seen it go the other way. I have seen two people who have been so in love now cannot be in a room together. It's not like friends to lovers where you think, yeah, okay, I know someone who was like friends with someone for a while and they ended up getting together. Strangers to lovers happens quite regularly. But enemies to lovers? No, I don't know that one in the real world, and it's just fun to suspend disbelief for a few hours and read that story. Second up, why I think it's popular is because there is room for tension in this. Because it should be pretty tense, the fact that they really hate each other and things change. There is an emotional roller coaster and I want to get on it. I love a roller coaster because it is never just from A to B, and we're going to talk about that a bit more in depth with the why this trope works, or rather what makes this trope work. So let's just crack on. First up, it is forced proximity. So if you do not force two people who don't like each other to keep hanging out, they're never going to hang out and they're never going to get together. Because when was the last time you chose to be around someone you actively disliked? Not even hate, just dislike. It's probably not going to be something you choose to do. You might end up going to a party or something and it's like, I don't particularly like that person, but I can kind of avoid them and ignore them. But to really hate someone, you need to force them together, whatever that reason is. Like, Gingerbread Bakery, it is Logan and Jeannie's wedding that forces them to spend time together. As much as I bring that up, I actually do not think it is the best example of this trope, and we're going to get into why. But once you have forced these two together, the major thing you need is time. Because the thing is, you are having to build trust from absolutely nothing. You kind of do with strangers to lovers, but you're kind of on a negative net worth here when it's enemies. Friends, there is already trust there. You are building on foundations. But when it's enemies to lovers, you do need time because these two have to gradually come round to each other. If it happens really fast, you've kind of told the whole story. If they're kissing like 20% of the way in, it's like, well, I was here for this big emotional roller coaster. I've been made a promise and you haven't kept it as a writer. I don't want these big, certainly not at the beginning, these big firework moments. I want little light bulbs. I want this to gradually light up. I love that first moment in an enemies to lovers where one of them, whoever the POV is, and I do think this works better with a dual POV, just because I want both sides of the story. That first moment when they go, oh, maybe I was wrong about this person. Keyword being maybe. Because that's the first step. And it's that. I want to build on that. I don't think it works as well when it is days or weeks. I want months. It's why I love and will go back to Gloves Off. And I've mentioned that book a few times. It's the fourth book in Vancouver Storm series. This is another thing that I'm going to say for enemies to lovers. Actually, let's put a pin in that because otherwise I will not come back. I will not finish my other point. Time. Gloves Off happens over months and we slowly see it unravel. The whole enemies thing just falls apart and they do fall in love. But we have seen them over the previous book, and it's hinted at in the book before that these two don't get on. I don't think it works when I'm thrown into it and there is no real backstory. What makes this trope work is backstory. There has to be a good reason. These two really hate each other. Or at least, you know, more than just a quick chat is going to fix this. It's part of the reason as much as I do like the Gingerbread Bakery, I don't love it, because I feel like even though there was, you know, the background, you know, the flashback chapters saying like, oh, this is how they got to where they are now, or just hating each other, they do fall in love very fast for two people that have spent years hating each other. When you take those flashbacks out, it happens very quick. And this trope is like a souffle. You need time. If you yank it out of the oven too quick, it falls flat and it's all gone wrong. You know, this needs to percolate, which I know is coffee. So I used to be a barista. But it needs time to brew and to, you know, build and build. Because as I said, you need trust. You know, without the foundations of trust, they're never going to work as a couple. So, and I want to believe these two are going to stay together after the book finishes. If there is not, you know, time to build the trust, I'm just going to assume they're going to break up like 6 months after this book finishes. So that said, when does this trope fall apart? So first up, it's when they don't really feel like enemies. I mentioned it before. If they could fix their issues with like 2 lines of dialogue, even if they are stubborn, were they ever really enemies? If they are, you know, snogging 20% of the way in, were they ever really enemies? It's like, this is enemies to lovers. This is not, you know, mildly indifferent to lovers. This is not, you know, casual dislike to lovers. This isn't dislike to lovers at all. This is enemies. I want these two at loggerheads. I want them goading each other and winding each other up. But it then goes from being to annoy the other one because they don't like them and they want to push them away to playful. This is why I say I like dual POV, because you can see that change in both of them. You don't just assume that one person is kind of a knob. Which leads me into my final point that I'm going to make in this video. It is making a character unlikable. Now, I've seen this in Grumpy Sunshine, and, you know, if you make someone too unlikable, whether it's the MMC or the FMC, you're not going to see why they get together as a thing as being possible. You're just going to look at it and go, well, why are you dating this person? They're horrible. And it is easy. Although some people said for Gloves Off, which is my absolute favourite enemies to lovers, that they found Volkov very unlikable. I found his chapters saved him, for me, from being fully unlikable. He could be very standoffish. He could come across as very sort of cold. But when you started to get into the whys of why he was the way he was in his chapters, I actually warmed to him and was like, damn, you just really hurt and protecting yourself. So yeah, this is why I do think Enemies to Lovers does actually benefit from a dual POV, because I do want both sides. Otherwise, you're losing like half of your story. But it's a personal thing. I know some people don't like dual POVs in books anyway. Me, I prefer them. And anyway, so that is kind of all I've got for you today. Do let me know in the comments below if you agree with what I've had to say, if these are the reasons you like Enemies to Lovers. If you like it for a different reason, I want to hear that too. As I said before, you know, let me know if there is a trope you want me to have a little chat about. These are only going to be short videos, just kind of fun, you know, what makes them work and what doesn't, and why they let me down as a reader, or why they succeed for me as a reader. And yeah, anyway, also do give me a subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. I post new videos every Tuesday talking about books and writing, and I am going to be getting back to doing some reviews soon. I did actually take a little bit of a break just because I was just enjoying reading for me. So I do want to get back into that though. I'm thinking I'm going to do a deep dive into the first 4 Vancouver Storm books very soon. But until then, I will see you in the next video. Take care, guys. Bye.